You're listening to Art of the Unknown, the podcast about traveling inwards, outwards, and onwards. Hey guys, and welcome back to the show. You're listening to episode number 22, and I'm your host, Sarah Cruz. So in this week's episode, we are going to get a little personal. I'm actually a little bit afraid to go into this direction of the unknown because it is not somewhere that I want to go. And to be honest, it's somewhere that I have been not trying to avoid, but trying to subconsciously distract myself so that I didn't really have to face this particular aspect of me. So I'm just going to start by saying that sometimes we leave a place, we leave a situation, or we even leave a person, and we think that once we have left whatever we left behind, we also assume that a part of ourselves is left behind with them or it. And that's exactly what I've been doing ever since I left the country back in October. I've simply just been assuming that the parts of me that I didn't want to face, or the parts of me that were difficult to comprehend or understand, I was assuming that because they haven't been coming up for me as often as I had in the past, I had just assumed that they were gone. I assumed that because I left the country, I also left a part of me behind, and that part of me was something that I didn't really necessarily like or want to associate with. So in episode number 4, I talked about how this trip wasn't about me running away from something like I've done in the past, but instead this trip was more so about running towards something. And if you want to go back and listen to that episode, it's number 4, it's called Runaway. But since I recorded that episode back in October, I think a little bit has changed, and I think that without me even realizing it consciously, I was actually running away from a part of myself that I didn't like, and that part has to do with self-love, or in my case, the lack of it. So before I left the States, I was very aware of the fact that I needed to improve the way that I felt about myself, and I really needed to improve how I related to the parts of myself that I was insecure about. And since I've left, nothing has really been coming up for me, which is why I assumed that by leaving, I had, in a way, fixed the problems that were so deeply rooted inside of me. But that is not the case. And recently, within the past week or so, it's been really coming back up for me, and it's showing me that while I have healed a little bit, I still have that fundamental feeling of unworthiness, and I don't want to say self-hate, but I would say it's a severe lack of self-love. So this is very difficult for me to talk about. And it's not difficult because I am verbally speaking it into a microphone, or I am broadcasting it on my podcast, but it's difficult to talk about because it is something that I avoid confronting within me, and it's difficult for me to really accept and face where I'm at on an emotional level. And it's something that at the end of the day, I don't want to do, and I would rather it not be a problem. But because it's coming back up, I know that I have to talk about it, and I know that I have to face it, and I know that I basically can't keep avoiding the issues that are basically there, because I've been doing that. I've been assuming that some of my internal problems were fixed because they haven't been coming up. And I know that's not the case, and I feel like I'm avoiding the issues once again. So I'm just going to dive into it and start talking about it. Okay. So I know that I have a lack of self-love because of the state that I was in before I left the country. When I was living in Portland, Oregon, I could barely be alone with myself. Being alone with myself and confronting who I was and looking myself in the mirror and just trying to see where I was and where I was at and who I was, I couldn't do it. I would look in the mirror and literally start crying. I could not face who I was because I did not like who I was. And it wasn't because I did something wrong or because I thought that I was a horrible person. I just didn't have that love and appreciation for myself that I feel like I do for other people. It was almost as though I would look at myself and ask the universe, why am I given this body? Why have I been given this personality? Why have I been given this soul? Like, I do not like it. There's nothing about myself that I like. It was a struggle to look myself in the mirror or to even acknowledge one thing about myself that I liked. And I know that this was clearly a sign that there is a lack of both love and respect for myself. It was almost as though if you were to strip away everything that I was and everything that I have done and everything about me, the way I look, the way I act, the way I feel, if you can strip all of that down, I still did not like what was left. And you can see why this is a little bit difficult to talk about because it is, I feel like, at the core. It is one of the core issues that I have. And it is why I really believe that this whole thing that I'm doing with traveling and doing the podcast and really trying to step away from who I was and really try to change, I feel like I'm doing it as a way for me to heal myself. And the foundation or the root of that healing is needed because of the way that I feel about myself and because of the way that I think about myself and the way that I ultimately do not love myself. And this trip has turned into a healing journey because that is the very thing that I need. I need to heal the parts of myself that I've over time destroyed. I have rejected. I have put down. I have in some way, shape, or form told myself that I am not enough. I am not worthy of love. And I ultimately am not lovable, which is why I have not been giving the love that I need to myself. So what I think I am dealing with here is the core belief that I am not enough. The way that I show up to the world is not enough. The way that I look, the way that I act, the way that I simply am without having to do anything or try or pretend like I know what's going on. I feel like the way that I ultimately purely and simply and authentically show up is not enough, which is why I believe that I maintain the belief that if I were to do something or if I were to achieve something or if I were just different in any particular way, then I would be worthy of the love that I think that I want and think that I deserve. And then only once I cross over to the other side of who I think I need to be and who I think I should be, then I will get that love. And I think that is the problem that I'm dealing with, is because I'm ultimately trying to obtain something else. I'm trying to change in a certain way. I'm trying to be something other than where I'm at before I can give myself any love and before I can just appreciate and find gratitude and love who I am in the exact place and in the exact way that I am. And I'm not saying that I hate myself. No, I definitely do not. But before I left, I would definitely say that I did. And since then, I have come a long way. Although I'm not where ultimately I want to be, I have made improvements, which is why I believe that I'm going in the right direction, and which is why I really believe that I need to talk about what's been going on and getting this honest, not just with, I guess, who's ever listening, but with myself it's difficult and it's scary because it's something that I don't want to talk about. And it's something that I would rather just avoid. But I know that if my purpose here is to heal myself, I know that I have to go down this path in order to do so. I can't avoid the parts of myself that I don't like because they're never going to change and they're never going to heal unless I'm able to, in a way, bring them up to light, unless I'm able to expose them to myself and really understand what they are and where they come from. Unless I can acknowledge them, then I'm not going to be able to heal it. They're not going to change. And I really think that by talking about stuff like this, it's, in a way, it's bringing it to light. And once it's exposed, I feel like that's when it begins to dissipate. That's when whatever issues or problems that you have with yourself internally, I feel like once you're able to bring them to light and not keep on pushing them down, that's when they can just be released and ultimately begin to heal. And I really think that's what's been happening ever since I left. I really think that since I've left the States and I've been traveling. But I think more importantly, I think what's been happening is me doing this podcast and actually talking about what's been going on and talking about where I'm at and talking about what's happening inside of me and the unknown parts of myself that I've been trying to avoid. I think that is where the healing is happening. Yeah, you can look and see, I don't know, that I'm just like traveling to these different places, but I really think that the places are being shown to me because of the changes that I'm making internally. I really believe that the changes are happening first, and then the outside world is being reflected because of those changes. And that's another reason why I want to share just everything with what's been going on and why doing this podcast is really important for me, because I feel like if I can explain the best way that I can, if I could really try to explain how I am trying to process everything that's going on and how I am processing what's been coming up and what I think about it and how I am releasing it and letting it out, I really hope that by doing so, it'll show somebody that if I can do it, then you can do it. If I can really turn the attention inwards and go in that direction, I feel like that is completely possible for anybody and everybody, because that ultimately is who we are. And I think that we spend so much time trying to avoid going inwards, trying to avoid the issues that we know we have. And I think that we spend too much time focusing externally that we end up living a life unhealed because we don't take the time and we don't take the energy that it takes to put our attention internally as opposed to externally. Because guess what? At least for me, the attention is, I would say, I don't want to say mostly external, but it's a lot. It's a lot easier to point to how the world around us is needing to be fixed or changed than it is to point to what inside of us needs to be fixed or changed. And I'm kind of just shining a light in there right now so I can look around and see what's going on with the intention of healing it, fixing it, and ultimately moving on from it, because I don't want to harbor this pain. I don't want to harbor any negative emotions about myself or other people. I don't want to harbor any form of negativity in my body, in my mind, in my soul, in my spirit, in my food, in my life, in my home, in whatever. I do not want any of that. And if there's something inside of me, if there's something living inside of me that I know is negative and I know is almost as though it's kind of like a black hole or something that I am afraid of and I am trying to avoid, I know that that is exactly where I need to go. That right there, people, is the unknown that lives within all of us. And that is the unknown that is scary as hell. That is the unknown that we do not want to go to. But despite how desperately you do not want to go there and how much you try to avoid that place, that is the place that you need to go. That is the place right there inside of you that is calling for your attention, that is calling for you to shine a light on it and to ultimately heal it. I know what's wrong with me. I can feel it. I can hear it. But again, at the end of the day, that is what we avoid. And I know I'm not the only one that it's like, you know what you need to do, you know where you need to go, and you tell yourself that's not the direction that you need to go in because you eventually hope that it's going to change. It's like you can ask yourself the same question over and over and over again, but you're expecting to get a different answer. You're expecting and hoping that one day the answer is going to change because you do not like the answer. You do not like your intuition or yourself or whatever pointing you to where you need to go internally. And because I do it too. I hope that the answer is going to change. I hope that I can ignore the problem long enough that it's just going to go away. And you know what? I have been ignoring this problem for far too long, which is why I need to talk about it. And I think talking about it is definitely helping, because I know that unless I can confidently say that I 100% love myself as I am, as I show up to the world, and I know it doesn't matter what anyone else says, what anyone else does, or what anyone else thinks. I am only going to see the lack of self-love, and I'm only going to feel that as a response to anything that I do, anything that I say, and anything that I think. That is going to remain there until I have the desire and the motivation to change it, which will take obviously time, which will take dedication, but I feel like wanting to and knowing that it's possible, I think that those are the things that you need in order to make a positive change within yourself. And I guess that's kind of sort of where we need to begin, right? And I also think it starts by tearing down all of the layers, because it's so easy to keep them up. It's so easy to distract yourself with people, with food, with alcohol, with whatever. It's so easy to distract yourself and place the attention on anything other than where you're at internally. And I think that's something that I've been doing for far too long, which is why I really think it's important to know how to be alone with yourself and listen to what you are telling you, because it is what you need to hear. And like I said, how I would just sit in my room and cry in Portland, that was so clearly myself telling me what was wrong with me. It was telling me that I don't love myself, and it was telling me that you need to be a little bit nicer to yourself. You need to stop being your own worst enemy, because look at what you're doing to yourself. You are destroying not just internal states, but you're also destroying your body. All this stress and all these negative thoughts, they are having an impact on your health. They are having an impact on your well-being, your mental state. Don't even get me started with the anxiety. Holy shit, okay? Yes. There are negative repercussions to basically being a bully to yourself all of the time. So that's what I'm saying. Listening to what you are saying, because you are saying it so very clearly, and it's tearing down the layers that are preventing you from listening, and not just listening, but are preventing you from actually hearing what you're saying. And there's layers that are in the physical world, but there's layers that are also within you as well. Like the mind will distract you. It'll tell you things. It'll basically try to lead you astray, because it is way easier to distract yourself for the moment than it is to really dive deep within yourself and understand what's going on and to feel that pain. That is a thing. This is painful. You are going to need to feel the pain of where you're at, because guess what? It hurts. It hurts for me right now too. I knew that this was also something I had to confront, because I felt it coming. I felt an emotional purge coming. I didn't know why, but I felt like there were feelings that were going to come up and I wasn't going to like them, but I knew that I had to feel them, or else they were going to live inside of me and ultimately destroy me from the inside out. Okay. To be real, I'm learning how to feel these feelings. Okay. I'm not going to cry on this episode. Don't worry, guys. I got that out before I started recording. But what I'm saying is that you're going to have to feel these feelings. So what I kind of did was I just sat with myself and I felt all of the feelings that I did not want to feel. Okay. I sat there and it was uncomfortable. It still is a little uncomfortable. Okay. I'm not saying it's over with. There's still things in there that I haven't let go of. But I think the important thing is to feel them as they are and as they come up, and not try to label them, because for me and for my mind and who I am and what I do and the way that I show up to the world, I need to understand things mentally for them to make sense on any level of my being, which is why emotions are so very difficult for me, because I feel something and I automatically want to label it. I automatically want to put it into a box, and I automatically want to put it into a category in order for the mind to understand it. And part of my evolution of understanding myself is that I can't necessarily do that, because emotions are something that you're not going to be able to put into a box, because that's not where they belong. That is not what they are. That is not something that you can grasp, because it is something on a different playing field. Okay. So for me, what I needed to do and what I'm still doing, what I'm still learning how to do, is to feel the emotions as they are without trying to label them. Because if they're coming up, that means that they're there. And it means that they're going to be there until they are felt and until they are dealt with. And for me, the feeling of not feeling loved and the feeling of unworthiness and the feeling of not being enough, those have been living inside of me for far too long. But I have been pushing those emotions down. I have been trying to avoid them. I have been distracting myself from them. And I have been trying to basically act like they don't exist within me, but they are there. And they are something that I need to feel in order for me to move past them. And it's not going to feel good. It hasn't been feeling good, but I know that that is what needs to happen. And I think that if you can, again, understand what's happening, like for me, if I can look at the situation that I'm going through right now and understand that this is just temporary, that maybe for the next week or two or whatever, I'm going to be feeling these emotions that I don't want, that I can't stand, that I want to avoid, and that I want to ultimately just ignore. But if I can understand that this is only temporary and that this is going to pass, and that in order for me to move on from them, I need to go through this temporary feeling of discomfort, I feel like in a way that makes sense to me, and therefore it's something that I can do. And again, this is going to be different for everybody, but I'm explaining basically the process behind how I am trying to heal myself of that feeling of ultimate unworthiness, of that feeling of not being enough, and of just not loving myself. I would definitely consider where I'm at a little bit of a battle. I would consider this a battle of self-love. So with that being said, I really believe that the lack of self-love that I am feeling and experiencing, I really believe that that is the root of a lot of issues and a lot of anxieties that I have, not just regarding myself, but how I relate to this world. And this podcast is definitely a way for me to help heal a lot of those feelings of unworthiness and those feelings of lack of self-love. So I want to go a step further, which is why I'm going to be doing a 40-day, I don't know what you want to call it, not meditation challenge, but a 40-day challenge filled with spiritual exercises. I don't know if you've read the book May Cause Miracles, but it's basically a 40-day guidebook to helping you become more in tune or in alignment with yourself and ultimately the universe. It's written by Gabriel Bernstein, who wrote the book The Universe Has Your Back. Anyways, if you want to join me in this little spiritual adventure that I'm doing, you're more than welcome to. I'm going to have a link to the audiobook in the show notes. You can get it for free off of Audible. So if you want to join me, you can go to my website, www.artoftheunknownpodcast.com. Click on the link that says podcast, go to episode 22, and there you will find the show notes with the link to the audiobook. And yes, if you want to join me, you are more than welcome to. My intention going into it is going to be hopefully reconnecting back with myself and hopefully opening myself up to the love that I know exists within inside of me, but also exists within the universe as a whole. And I haven't started the intro or anything, but I know that it is basically what's going to be happening is every day is a different kind of spiritual exercise that you do to help basically increase that feeling of love and acceptance in yourself and in the universe. I think each one maybe takes like 5 minutes or so. So it's nothing huge, nothing big, nothing drastic. It's basically just a consecutive 40-day practice of tiny little shifts that you're going to be making. And I would really like it if anyone wanted to join me. That would be great. And other than that, I want to say thank you again for everyone that listens to this podcast. You honestly inspire me and keep me going, because there are definitely days when I don't want to record. I don't think I'm doing it right. I don't feel like I'm in the right spot. But when I hear feedback from you guys, that lets me know that I guess that I'm doing the right thing despite how scary or how uncomfortable it feels. And I want to say thank you. And if you like the show, I would really appreciate a review on iTunes just so I can know what you think and what you want to hear. And yes, so thank you again for listening. This basically wraps up episode number 22, and I am out.